Have you ever given any thought to whether or not the practice of real estate is art or science? This is Tad Fulfer with Rise Up in Real Estate, and this is actually a pretty new idea for me, something that I said out loud the other day, and I'm not sure that I agree with it. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around the idea of whether or not the thing that we do in real estate, the idea of meeting and helping folks transact, is an art or science. I want to share with you what I think so far in my exploration and get your feedback and see what you think as well. Because I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but I think it's healthy conversation and healthy intellectual exercise to examine art versus science. So in general, the definition of art is expression, the way to express. And number two, by definition, art is subjective, meaning that it can't be pinpointed. It can't be like black or white. It is up to interpretation. So art is a form of expression and it's subjective. Science, on the other hand, is a way to observe things that already exist. So it's not an expression, it's actually observation. And it is not so subjective, but number two, it is more objective. So you have art on the one hand that is expression, right? It is the idea of showing and finding and realizing who one is or what one does. And on the other hand, science is looking at the world and figuring out how to interpret that world. So I think it's kind of interesting, and I think both parts play. What I would like to challenge you with is that maybe real estate practice is artful and scientific. This is what I mean. So as you meet a buyer or a seller, there is a scientific process, right? There is a specific way that you go about, hopefully, very systematically, you go about finding out what this person is going to do, and there's certainly a system for you to find out how to get it done. What I mean by this is when you're sitting with a buyer, there are probably certain questions that you ask. There are certain procedures that you follow. There are certain processes that you've done over time that you've learned. You do this with buyer or seller. You do it in the closing process all along the way. We call these systems, maybe you have a transaction coordinator, maybe you use a transaction management system, maybe use a CRM, maybe use a lead generator. There's all these things, all these scientific things that we use in order to have our process follow its way. What I want to challenge you with, though, is in order to be most effective, we need to learn to do the art part of real estate a little bit better. And what I mean by that is this: in the middle of your process, it can't become so systematic that you forget to listen to what your client is saying. I think there is an art to hearing the expression of your buyer and seller. And when they describe to you in answering questions that you've systematically, scientifically put in front of them, I think you need to sit back with an artful mind and say, what are they trying to say to me? And this is why. If you can figure out how to do this part of it best, if you can figure out how to do the art part, the expressive part, and really tune into what the customer client says, then you can tap into their true motivation, the true why for why they're doing what they're doing. This is how it works out. When you ask a seller, what is the reason for you selling? Well, we're just ready to move to a warmer climate. You can just move on with that. You've checked the box. You have answered the question. You've asked the question. They've answered it, and you can move forward. They want to move to a warmer climate. What if you decided for a moment that you were going to dig a little bit deeper, realizing that every individual that you talk to is unique. Every individual that you talk to has had different experiences, different motivations, different pathways to the chair that they're sitting in with you right this moment. What if you asked another question? Tell me more about that. Do you like warm weather? Do you not like the cold weather? Is there something about the cold weather that bothers you? Are there things that you enjoy doing in the warm weather that you can't do in the cold weather? Have you lived in the warm weather before? There's tons of questions that I could show you that you could ask in order to find out what their real motivation is. It could be a health issue that allows their lungs to work better when they are in the warmer climate, for example. And if you don't ask the deeper question, if you don't use the artful approach and try to find out why they're expressing what they're expressing, as I'm defining it, then you might miss the major motivation. And when you find their major motivation, if you find that that person in this example has a health issue that is going to make them feel better in a warmer climate, now their motivation is going to outweigh most, if not all, of the objections that might come up during the sales process. So for example, if they know that getting a new home is going to help them breathe better, better, they're not going to be as worried about the rates. They're not going to be as worried about the number of homes on the market. They're not going to be as worried about consumer confidence or the administration. They're going to be more worried about, because you're going to be asking further questions and emphasizing their motivation, they're going to be more worried about the fact that they breathe better in a warmer climate. So I want you to consider this. Give it some thought. Read the definition of art. Read the definition of science. Ask AI what they think about these two things and figure out whether or not in real estate you can use both. My argument is a scientific, systematic approach with an artful understanding is the perfect combination to real estate success. This is Tad Fulford with Rise Up in Real Estate, and I hope today helps you think and helps you rise up.